Hey, my name is Jalen. It's my video file for Dr. Hod. Doing the third prompt, which is going to be talking about a 56-year-old patient coming in. They just had bypass surgery. They're on loop diuretics as well as vasodilators. And I'm talking about in later videos their exercise tolerance, what we're going to see from them with exercise, what it's going to affect. Okay, so what is bypass surgery? So fundamentally, in a nutshell, it is when the coronary artery, specifically talk about coronary artery bypass grafting. So the arteries that feed the heart, the coronary arteries, there's a blockage there. So what's going to do is we're going to go in, grab an artery or vein for your leg, for your arm, for your chest. We're going to graft it to away from the blockage. That way the heart can supply itself, right? Fundamentally getting the oxygen and other nutrients that is needed. That way, ischemia or angina symptoms will go down. Okay, and so these people, yes, they will. Exercise is capable with people with bypass grafting, and so again, we're going to be taking how people with this bypass grafting, or you know, we need to be aware with the bypass grafting that these people do have heart problems when it comes to exercise. And then later on in what I'm about to talk about, we're going to see how their exercise tolerance is actually going to go down depending on the drugs that they're on. So fundamentally, we need to know what's going on with the body when we begin exercising. This equation in the middle, all right? Q equals HR times SV. What is it? Cardiac output, all right? What does that mean? It's pretty much the amount, which SV stands for stroke volume, or the amount of blood in milliliters, mostly, of blood pumped out through left ventricle in a minute or beats per minute heart rate. All right, these two factors times is going to give you your cardiac output. Okay, at the body, there's a mechanical change that's needed to begin exercise. So the skeletal muscle pump, right? What is it gonna do? When you begin to exercise, there's going to be an increase in pressure, which is very important when it comes to the drug that we're talking about. There's going to be an increase in venous pressure needed to begin exercise, right? Due to rhythm contraction of the muscles. All right. And then there's metabolic. All right, these are the wastes of exercise. If I'm working primarily anaerobic, I'm going to build up lactate and hydrogen ions. All right, or I can build up ADP ions if I'm more in an aerobic state. So what do these ions do? Right, these wastes are vasodilators. So let's say I'm on a treadmill. All right, I'm running 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going to build up waste, but what's primarily working? My legs. So blood has to get to my legs to supply with oxygen to be able to work even more. So these vasodilators are going to do exactly what they sound like, dilate the blood vessels into my legs. So I'm on a treadmill, that way I can continue to work. All right, autonomic. So we're going to be sensing our joints, baroreceptors, proprioceptors. They're going to be sensing this change in homeostasis, and the hypothalamus will sense it, be like, oh, there needs to be a, you know, hormonal change. All right, here in the bottom, right, bottom, yeah, yeah. So there needs to be a hormonal change occurring with to maintain my cardiac output as I'm exercising. So what is that going to look like? So we're going to increase S and S activity through the hormones, through the hormonal response. We're going to release something known as epinephrine. As we all know, that's the fight or flight response. Epinephrine and norepinephrine, which acts more like a neurotransmitter because it has such a short half-life. But we're going to increase those inside the body to increase the heart rate to increase Q, because Q needs to be increased if we're exercising, right? So what about stroke volume? What's going on there? What's going to maintain or even increase the stroke volume. So we have something called the central command, right? It's the priming system of us when it comes to exercise. So to maintain our stroke volume through the central command is going to increase venous return. Our preload is going to increase because we need more blood, right? We need to increase our blood getting to the heart to supply it to pump to the rest of the body and specifically to the working muscle. All right, so venous return is going to increase. Venous constriction is going to increase, right? Which what that will help to do is not the blood can get to the working muscle. So venous constriction has to occur at other places. A redistribution of blood has to happen at other places. Ventricular inotropy will increase, or contraction of the ventricle will increase. That way I can get, and especially to match with heart rate, to get blood to the muscle as fast as possible. But also, ventricular lusitropy has to increase as well, which is relaxation, which sounds counterintuitive, but at the end of the day, we still have to have time for the blood to fill so we can get smooth muscle contractions. All right. So ventricular lusitropy has to increase as well. Oh, that last video that way I could write down what I need to for this video in terms of loop diuretics and vasodilators. So we know our patient is going to be on both these drugs. All right. So we need to talk about what are the drugs. Loop diuretics, they're going to go in and specifically target, the proximal convoluted tubules in the kidneys, right? So that's a major point of reabsorption in the body. The body in the kidneys, where you reabsorb a lot of ions like sodium, specifically, we're going to say sodium, potassium, and calcium. Now, what do we know about these three ions, all right? These three ions are fundamentally needed for depolarization and contraction of the heart muscle. All right. So you can already know. So see where I'm going with this. Vasodilators. What do they do? Well, they just rapidly vasodilate um, blood vessels, arteries, and so forth. All right. So what factors of cardiac output will these affect in terms of income exercise? All right. Preload is a big one for both of these drugs. Why? All right, loop diuretics. This is fluid leaving the body. Blood is mostly water. So if we're peeing out all this water, essentially with these ions involved, then we won't have enough blood to fill. We're going to lose a filling of blood. So our preload is going to be majorly affected by loop diuretics. All right, what's another afterload? All right, these are affecting the stroke volume, really both of these drugs. So afterload, right? We want to decrease the pressure. If we have less blood um, coming into the heart, there's going to be less pressure needed to get blood to the rest of the body. All right. So preload, afterload, pretty big. These ions, what will they affect? All right. More exercising, what's increasing cardiac output, both of these variables, right? Our heart rate won't be able to jump as much. Why is that? Because we're losing, especially calcium. We're losing calcium. So without calcium, contraction can't occur rapid or fast. Okay, so our heart rate can't go up as much. I'll go a little increase. Our heart rate can't jump as much as we would if someone like me would go out exercise. But someone on loop diuretics, if I was on loop diuretic, my heart rate can't come up as much. Contraction can't occur as much. All right, so my exercise tolerance is going to go down. All right, vasodilators, they rapidly vasodilate arteries, veins, so forth and so on. What does that affect? Preload, right? Preload is a big one for vasodilators. Okay, so what vasodilators do is it'll also decrease the venous tone. All right, so less blood is going to be needed to come in for preload. All right, again, in terms of like the same with loop diuretics, what is that going to do? It's going to decrease the afterload or the pressure needed to get blood out into the working muscle. Okay. And so with exercise, we know that vasodilation happens at the working muscle. Okay. So there's a redistribution of blood. There's gonna be some vasoconstriction to places that don't need the blood. But if I have a rapid vasodilator inside of my body, that's a major issue. Blood can't get to the working muscle as appropriate as it needs to be because pretty much all around my body I'm vasodilated. So my exercise tolerance is going to be decreased because of vasodilators. All right. So that's pretty much it for this video, knowing that um, preload and afterload are big things affected by loop diuretics and vasodilators, and then how the heart rate won't won't be able to work in the same capacity. So exercise tolerance will be decreased. And both these drugs, loop diuretics, before I stop, loop diuretics expect the patient to uh, urinate frequently. That is the loop diuretics has a fast mechanism of action, so they may have to pee a number of times. And if I got to stop and go pee and take breaks, it in it very few minutes, well, my exercise won't really be good. And with vasodilators, these drugs, this nitrous, it's a gas, and it can uh, really cause problems inside the body and become toxic. So these are just more common things to think about when it comes. It's not really related to exercise, but more common things to remember when people are on these drugs. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.